In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how we can make a very simple shape inside of Maya and then push that over to ZBrush pretty quickly using either GoZ or just exporting out an OBJ and then pulling it into ZBrush, holding the shapes, making custom polygroups pretty quickly based off the shapes that we made inside of Maya, and then going to town on this with some different custom brushes and detailing this out to build it up to a pretty good looking, high quality, high res model. Okay, to start off inside of Maya, we're going to make some very quick and simple shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and go to create polygon primitives and use a cube. I'll just use the option box here and I'll show you the options that we've got for this thing. Just something very simple, 1 by 1 by 1 cube. I'll change the divisions to 2 by 2 by 2 and hit apply for that. And then I've got this cube set up here like this. So I'll go ahead and just maybe scale this thing up a little bit. And I want to do some interesting things to it, so I'm going to go ahead and right click over this and say face, select the faces on this, shift right click, say extrude face. I'll extrude these out, make some kind of shape that looks like this and through here. And then I'll go ahead and select the edges, so I'll hit F10, or you can right click on here and say edge right here like this, shift right click, and I'm going to use bevel edge like this. Now I can click and change the fraction. I could hold down control and have better control over that, but I think 0.5 is going to be kind of a cool number. I can use that and then up these segments for this thing. So I'll do something like 6 segments on that. And then I'll go ahead and select these edges and through here like this, and I'll select this one through here and tap G for my last command for that. So I can just take the segments and pull that up to 6, maybe take the fraction down to 0.2, somewhere in there, like that. I'm going to go ahead and do the same for here. And I'll do this here, like that, tap G again. Take this down to 0.2 and do segments about 6 or so, right around there. Then this one, tap G, I'll leave the fraction 0.5 for that, and then I will go ahead and take the segments and draw that up to maybe about 8 and through here like this. So now that the base shape is done, I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and I'm going to add some splits in through here, and I'm going to use the multi-cut tool. So I'm going to hit F8 to go to object mode. You can right click and say object mode either way. Shift right click and then go to multi-cut, and then I can just hold down control and I could slide an edge in through here like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and select these faces. So I'm going to hit F11 and I'm just going to hold down tab while I do that, so I can draw that selection out there like that. And I think I'm going to go ahead and draw these out right there like that as well. And then I'll go ahead and shift right click and then I'll extrude the face on this. And I'll just extrude this in. I do have symmetry turned on, so that's a shift right click on here. I think I have to be in object mode for that. So if I do shift right click, I can go to symmetry, and that's why I'm modeling in symmetry kind of mode there like that. So I got these two different pieces. I think that's good enough for a shape. So the other thing I can do, I can select this, I can delete the history on it. I can send this over to ZBrush, and if I show my my shelf, so I'd have to go to Windows, UI Elements, and turn on my shelf, and I've got under here GoZ, so I could just click that and it would send it over to ZBrush. Now the problem is ZBrush doesn't like end guns, so we've got some different faces on here that have more than four points on it, so that would be a problem. So what I can do before I send it over, just hold down shift and right click on this in object mode, and then I can go to triangulate, and I could triangulate the mesh like that. So now I can go ahead and click that, and I can export it as an OBJ, as a GoZ. If I want to do an OBJ, if GoZ isn't working for you, just go and say file, export selection, do the option box, do OBJ, use the settings that I usually use for this, for that. So I can do it that way, or you can use GoZ. I'll just go ahead and click that, and I'll create a link, and it's going to send it over to ZBrush for me. And so here's the model. I'll turn on my polyframe, and you can see that this is the model triangulated. Now there's going to be some things I'm going to show you that it would be beneficial if we have polygroups. So if we open up our polygroup area right here, we do have this groups by normal, and we've got this tolerance of 45 degrees. Let's go ahead and click that and see how that's working. And you can see it's going to make polygroups for all these different pieces, and that's going to work pretty well for me. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to mirror this across so I've got the same polygroups on both sides. So I'm going to use this mirror and weld. That actually exists in geometry. If you go to modify topology, you can use mirror and weld on the x-axis like that, and you can see that it's going to mirror that across, and now I've got the same polygroups on the left side as I do the right side. The next thing I'm going to do, I want to use a plugin. We could use Dynamesh, but I want to use a plugin that was made by Joseph Drust. I'm going to go ahead and go to ZPlugs and pull this over here. It's called Dynamesh Master, and if we open this up, we can specify, if I could turn this into Dynamesh, how many millions of polygons will this be? So I could put this at a number, let's say 0.5, and that would be 500,000 polys for that. Or if I can want it to be pretty decent resolution, I can do 1 for a million, and then I'll go ahead and just click Dynamesh, but I'm going to turn off this blur. So I'll go ahead and hit Dynamesh like this. You can see it's going to go through, and it's going to take this model. It'll keep the polygroup information that we've got and turn this into Dynamesh. So let me go ahead and turn off the polyframe so we don't see that anymore. Now we do see some faceting in through here, and I want to fix that. The way that I can do that is if we go to the deformation area and we open this up, we can go to polish by feature, and let's turn off this little hole, donut hole thing, and that'll make it much stronger. But the polish by feature looks at your polygroups and it retains the edges between the polygroups and it smooths it out. So I can drag this slider up just a little bit. You see it's going to hold the hard edges for me along through here, but it's going to start to soften this transition up. I had more geometry here, so that was no problem. This is a little bit more faceted through here. So what I could do, because I don't really need to smooth the rest of the model, because if I do that, it starts to have, you know, pretty big effect on there. I could do it on the entire thing. Looked like it was okay, but if I want, I can hold down Control and then I could paint this. I'm going to hit X, so I got this symmetry going on here. So I could do something like this, and I could take my mask, hold down Control and tap on it to smooth out that mask a little bit more, and then I could hit Control I to inverse that, and then I could do polish by feature, and then it only works on that particular area, and I don't have to worry about it doing anything else to any of the other area like this. Maybe just run it just a little bit more. So you can see we've got our shape over here, and it looks pretty good like that. We can turn on our polyframe and we can see this. We could remesh if you want, if you hold down Control and drag, it's going to, but I've noticed with this thing here, I got to keep hitting the button. So what I could do, if I want to go back to the regular Dynamesh mode, go to geometry, go to Dynamesh, and I can turn that button back on, and now we're back into the normal kind of Dynamesh mode that we're used to. So the other thing that we could do is we could run a polish, just a regular polish on here, and then that will kind of soften up these edges and kind of bevel them just a little bit. That exists under deformation, and we can go to polish and we can just run that just a little bit, and you can see how it starts to round these corners for us quite a bit, right? So that's a way to kind of get that resolution in there and that geometry. So the other thing that we can do is start to use brushes to kind of detail some of this stuff out. So I'm going to tap the comma key and open up brushes. I'm going to go to brush, and I've got a shortcut stored in here. This shortcut leads me to where I keep all my brushes. You can do a search for this MAH cut, these mech different kind of brushes. These things are really cool for doing kind of tech lines and things like that. So I'll just use this MAH cut mech, I think it's just B. I'll just double click that and load that up like this, and I'll just tap P to go out of perspective mode. And what I could do, if I drag this thing over, I can hold down Shift and I can do straight lines with this, and I'll just run it back and through here again like this, and I can come to the back and I can kind of see where that was at here, and I can just run it on the back like that. And if I want to run it on the front, I can still kind of see where that is here. And this is working. It's got lazy mouse turned on. If you want lazy mouse turned off, you just tap L to take that off. Now I can tap P to go back into the perspective. But there's no reason why you couldn't take this and just freehand draw with it. And you could do shapes something like this, right? If you want to do some kind of line. I might want to tap P and then take a look at this right here and just drag straight down. One thing I did, I held down Shift while perspective is turned off while I'm rotating the camera, and that'll give you an orthographic kind of look. So I'm going to drag this down like this and maybe continue this this line and through here like this. Something like that. And then I can still see where this is going to be right here. So I can finish out that line, tap P. So I've got some additional information here. If I've got this polyframe, what I could do is hold down Control and Shift, and I can select just this area right here, like this, and I'll mask it. I'll hold down Control and click in the viewport, like that. If I want to bring everything back, visibility, Control Shift, just click in the open viewport like that. If you want to inverse a mask, Control I, like this. If you want to smooth the mask out, you can hold down Control and click on the mask, and that'll kind of smooth it out a little bit, like that. Now, what I was going to use is a brush that I've created. So if I tap the common key and go to My Brushes, again, if you go to the folder that I've got set up, Nick Z, go in here, I've got this drag grid pattern that we've got here, like this. And what I can do is make the brush size a little bit bigger. If I hold down Shift and just kind of draw out like that, I can get some lines that look like this at that point. So that's kind of fun to do something like that. I can do the same thing back here, like this here. So I'll just mask that off, inverse, smooth out the mask just a little bit. And then I can kind of draw in through here, holding down Shift. And I'm going to try to do that a little better and have these lines line up. So I might have to rotate my brush just a little bit, and then maybe just smooth out the results just a little bit, like that on there. Some other things that I've got, I made some brushes that you could find, quite a few brushes like this. If I hit the common key, I'm going to go back into my brushes, and I've got these different kind of circular kind of details that you can see here. So if I do the drag rectangle, I can drag, click and drag one out at a time, kind of like this that you see here. I'm going to do another one right in through here. Now, if I want them to be exactly the same size, I can put it on this drag dot, and I can make my brush size a little bit smaller, tap S, and let's say I want one here, and I want one here, then here, maybe here. That's giving me different copies that are going to be exactly the same size. If I do something that feels a little bit more like a screw head or something like that, I think I got to take the intensity and drag this up a little bit more. If I do the drag rectangle, it's just going to draw out like this. But if I do the drag dot, I can kind of move this thing around. This thing's got lazy mouse turned on, and that exists within stroke. If you go to lazy mouse, you can see that turned on. I've just put that down here in the menu. You can tap L to do that. Anytime I'm using some of these brushes, it doesn't really feel like I should be using, it doesn't feel like I should be using the lazy mouse for this. Okay, so I need more resolution in just that part of the model. I did find out a new little kind of trick today that was kind of cool. If you hold down Control, let's say I need more resolution in this area and we don't have any subdivision levels, I can hold down Control and drag on here, and I can paint kind of a mask area of where I want this to go up in resolution, and I can hold down Control and Shift and let go, and it makes more, it basically divides that particular area that you see inside of there. And so now I've got more geometry to work with. And so if I drag that out in there, it's starting to feel better. Let's do even more. That's one way of doing it. Again, that's holding down Control and dragging out a mask, and then holding down, adding Shift to that, and then letting go. That's one way of doing it. And let's draw that area in here, and let go, and I'll turn off the polyframe, and then you can see now I'm getting some pretty nice resolution in just through that particular area. That's one way of doing it. The other way is if I hit Control Z to get back. Let's go back to where we had our mask. Let's say I want just this area to be more resolution for us, like this. I can inverse the mask, Control I, and now I can hit Control D, and it should add subdivisions to just this part. Looks like it takes a little longer. Hit Control D again. This should just divide this area up again. And then I can get rid of my mask and then turn that part off. And you can see now if we drag this thing out, we've got pretty much resolution. Now, if it still looks a little rough, you could just hold down Shift and smooth it and just kind of lightly tap on that just a little bit. And then I know it does kind of make the detail a little bit blurrier, but it could be a way for you to get that resolution that you're looking for. And anytime we've loaded up a brush, we can get back to these by just tapping B, and it should be up here in the top. So now if I wanted to draw out some tech lines like this, maybe I want to draw something kind of right in here like that. I can do these kind of details, and then maybe I'll take this and just pull this down and through here like that. And so I've got I just have quite a few different brushes for doing different stuff. And again, this kind of great thing, if I wanted to, I could maybe try to match the size of this with a mask just a little bit right in through here. And if I hold down Control and drag this out and add the Alt modifier, I can subtract that mask away like this. And what I could do, if I want to make this into a polygroup, I can hit Control W. I can take that mask and turn it into a polygroup. And then I could take this right here. I could just use this polish by feature like that. Get this thing back in through here. And then what we can do, we can isolate that part. I can put it on the transpose tool. And if I hold down Control while I drag this down, let's mask this thing out. So I'm holding down Control and clicking on this, and I'll mask everything but this part. And I can pull this down in through here. But what I could do before that, you see it stretches the mesh down there like that, and it wouldn't give us something clean that we could work with. So I could isolate just this part here, and then I could go to geometry, and then I can go to we need edge loop, and then we can do group loops with one, and then I'll add a loop all the way around this thing. So now whenever I do Control and then click on this part and then push down on it, it's actually going to give a new polygroup for that thing. If I wanted to kind of bevel that in a little bit, then I could click and drag out like this and use scale, and I could pull that in just like this. And it looks like I've kind of matched the depth of that. Let me turn the polyframe off, and if it doesn't look clean enough, I can hold down Control and then I can blur the mask a little bit, and then I'll use that polish by feature again. That's in the deformation area. I have that little donut hole turned off, and I can just do that, and it'll start to crispen up those edges on there. And then now what I've got is this is a section all by itself, so I could show that, and I'll inverse the mask just like this. And if you remember what we did before, we took the resolution and we hit Control D and we added some subdivision levels to this. Since everything's masked off except for that part, it's just going to add subdivision levels to that area. And I think we'll just do one. You can see the bigger the model gets, the longer this stuff takes, right? So I'll turn off polyframe on there, and I'll go back to my brushes. So I'll tap B, and then I'll use this drag grid that we were using before, make it a little bit bigger, and click and drag out. And want to do it this direction. So I think I'm dragging out the wrong direction. There we go. Like that. Just hold down shift and I can constrain it to where it makes it nice and straight for me. And maybe I'll just do this polish by feature while I got it there, and I'll just kind of blur it just a little bit. So I'm going to show you just a few other techniques here. So I'm going to go back to the brushes that I made. I do have some things on here where I like these little notch kind of things. They I think they end up kind of looking pretty cool. So if I drag something else like that, let's just do the brush size a little bit smaller. I might drag something like this here. Maybe find another one here. Kind of pull a detail like that. Actually, not a fan of that one. So I'm just trying to see if I get really close to that edge, what happens at that point. There's some other things I showed you, maybe something like this shape here. If I click and drag something out like that, it's got more of a shape like this, but we can drop down the intensity and you could do something kind of really big like this. And what it starts to do, it looks like it kind of eats away at the surface there. So you can end up getting some really kind of cool and interesting shapes that way as well. So if I drag out something like this, it looks like it's been machined away from that thing and through there. Maybe I'll go through here and go a little bit larger with it. So you've got overlaps like this. So you can get some pretty cool and interesting stuff. It depends on how far you kind of want to go with the surface. I did set up a few brushes like this as well, that if I kind of drag these out, it's got more of this kind of look. If I hold down Alt, I can kind of drag in with that. That one's pretty heavy, so with any brush that you get that somebody makes, you're probably going to want to alter it a little bit. So I just tap U to change the intensity of this a little bit and through here, and I'm trying to just get it lined up nice and straight and through here with this thing like that. And so I could even overlap them a little bit, and you can see because I started over here, it pushes in the middle a little bit further than it does on the outer part and through there, which is kind of cool. So I'll go back to B and I'll go back to this this doing line work kind of stuff. So after I see some of these elements and through here, maybe I want to kind of continue on with some of this through here. Like that. And then I also have some insert mesh brushes too. So insert mesh brushes, you can't use subdivision levels with it, but this is Dynamesh, so that will work just fine for that. So I've got a folder for insert mesh brushes, and if I go to the ones that I've created, I started to build up a library of stuff, but I've got some different things for Hardsurface. And again, if you wanted to do something like these screw heads, kind of the cool thing about this is actually using actual geometry at this point to pull some of this stuff out. So I'm just going to click and drag through here and find like this screw head here. This one's got multiple inserts on it, so you can tap M to load this up, and so I could do with this guy here or this one. And again, if we want to click and drag this thing out, this is actual geometry at this point. So we can click and drag out, and if I hold down Control, it makes it the size of the brush. So I'll make this a little bit smaller, and let's say I want a screw in through here. Let's go to the top. So hold down Control for this, and I can click and drag this one out. Hold down Control. Hold down Control for that, like this. And maybe I want this detail on the back here. Something like that. And I can go and check out some other shapes that we've got in here I've created. try something like this. See how it looks. It's kind of big. Now this one was actually, I believe it was modeled. So what I mean by that is if I turn on the polyframe information for it, I could add divisions to that one. So whenever you drag an insert mesh brush, you can see it mask everything else out. So if you want to separate it off, it's pretty easy to split this. So you just go to split and split unmasked points, or you can split mask points, either one. And you can see it's going to throw this into its own subtool at that point. And then at that point, I can just hit Control D and add as many divisions to this thing as I want. And now I've got this. I'll turn off solo so we can see both of these things together. So I can also take this and put it on the move transpose tool and then push it into the surface, kind of like this. And then now I need to build something on this surface that makes it feel like it's actually put inside of there. So I'll just put it on my standard brush that we've got here. You can tap B and then S and then find standard that way. No big deal for that, but I'm going to use this drag rectangle like this and then put it on this alpha here and maybe do alpha 09. And if I hold down Alt, I should be able to drag this thing out. Let's see, I've got lazy mouse turned on, and again, I don't like the drag rectangle with lazy mouse. So I'll make this brush size a little bit sizer than this, a little bit bigger than this. Hold down Alt, and then click and drag out, and then pull that information out like this. Instead of jigging in, I can just go out with it, like that, and then maybe smooth out the results a little bit. So now it's starting to feel as if that thing was actually embedded directly into the surface on this thing. So something like that, that kind of detail is making it have a different kind of scale. Before I was thinking this was something that you could hold in your hand, but that kind of detail there that we just added almost makes me think that this could be like a really large kind of crate. So you had to watch some of the detail that you put in there and kind of watch for things like that. You know, I could potentially go through and maybe find a different shape that wouldn't make it feel quite as large. So I'm not exactly sure just yet what that might be. I could use something like this one here. Pull that through. And then as soon as you get done with one of these, it's going to give you the transpose tool. So you do have an opportunity to kind of go through and kind of move this thing. If you want, you can move it up and down. You can click here and I can push that and embed it in. So that's one kind of look there. And I could always turn this on and see if these things actually work together. So what I could do is if I've got, you know, I've got this version on, it's this, and if I turn that off, it kind of goes to this thing in through here like that. So again, if I wanted to change the scale of this and I wanted to make this feel smaller, then I would probably need to start adding some more of these screw heads. These things make you think that you know, if this is a large crate and the person is standing here, then these are really large kind of screw heads. At that point, you would have to start doing something quite a bit smaller. And if I click and drag on this one, I'll make my brush size quite a bit smaller, and then start working around here. Looks like it needs to be a lot smaller than that. I'm going to hold down Control. It's a bit too small, so I've got to find that right kind of spot there. So you can see that starts to change the scale relationship a little bit. through there. I can do a few more over here. Like that. Okay, so I think that's a quick introduction from like how you get something from Maya, push it over to ZBrush, you know, start to use some of these different techniques to make this feel a little better for the hard surface kind of workflow, and also using some of your own custom brushes and things like that that you might be finding out there to really kind of alter the surface and make it look a lot more detailed than what it really started off. And again, that was just something very, very simple inside of Maya. And so I didn't really have anything specific in shape in mind for this shape when I first started, but if you want to use this as a technique, you know, you're probably going to have a more complete model and more specific shapes in mind whenever you first start off. And then that'll lead up into a final model that's got quite a bit of detail, and then maybe you didn't spend quite as much time modeling the thing.